Casteris. My poor Casteris. I knew your story was sad, but I didn't know it was this bad. Right as we slowly cope and move past the Tribios 998 incident, Hoyo, as sadistic as ever, hits us with yet another tragic backstory that we truly were not ready for. All ending with an Easter egg that no one knows how to decode except for me. And except for you guys. But we'll get into that later, because we just got a massive info dump on Little Miss Homebody, and I cannot wait to break this down because we've got a lot to talk about. The trailer dropped, the animated short broke our hearts, then the cooking thing mended it all back together again, and I feel like our emotions are being toyed with in a way that makes me so hyped for the new version. So, let's talk about it, shall we? Because this is the past and future of Casteris explained. Okay, so it's only fitting to go in chronological order, so let's pull the band-aid off right away and talk about the animated short of Casteris' life, where we learn that this touch of death curse she has isn't something that she just got one day. It seems to be something that she was born with, which is awfully mysterious and additionally tragic for 3 reasons. 1, we have no idea how this happened to her. 2, she probably doesn't know either. And 3, she probably inadvertently killed her own parents. It's not confirmed, but when we see her here as a small child and everyone kinda knows about her, putting 2 and 2 together, there is really only one way to know how we got here. Which means that she has been lonely for her entire life. And understandably so. At that point, it's just a precaution. But we also see the culture of this people who live here, which is something that I think is pretty interesting. This place is most likely a land that worships the Death Titan, so they have a unique viewpoint on death itself. Because Casteris wasn't disrespected or hated, she was treated like a gift, a blessing even. Her hands were able to ease the pain of others and guide them to Thanatos, something that is very useful as we've seen in the Nikador story. The problem being, this is a child that they are forcing to be a mortician. But this wasn't the main issue. Of course this made her sad, but this isn't what truly broke her. What broke her was being deprived of something all humans require just as much as food and water, a loving embrace. Or even a caring embrace for that matter. The distance that her curse put between her and other people is what truly traumatized her. Because as a child who simply wanted to interact and play with other kids, she could only watch in longing, with her imagination being her only way to experience what everyone else took for granted. And this intense loneliness festered and eventually transformed into self-hatred, as she called her hands cold and that she hated them. And as time passed, she came of age and she decided to leave her homeland to travel across the many lands of Emporius, witnessing many wars and more death, further confirming to her at least that she alone was the problem, and death followed her wherever she went. So she returned home and continued her duties as a mortician, gaining nothing from her journey but numbness and frigid indifference. Until one day she met a familiar face, an old woman who she knew from back when she was young, and I need to pause right here because it threw me off that this woman aged so much faster. But then I remembered that Casteris is an elf, which is another crazy detail because this further emphasizes the distance between her and humanity. Because even if she didn't have the death touch curse, she would have to watch everyone she knew and grew up with die before her simply because her lifespan is far longer than everyone else's. It's such a sad detail, but it's so good and it works so well with the story. It's the little things. But back on topic, because this is where things get more intense. We know that this is the little girl with the stick idea from before that somehow bypassed the death touch curse, because we see her using thicker gloves to try to create more of a barrier between her skin and whatever she touches, and that didn't work, but for some reason a stick works. I don't know how that works, but either way it worked, and this is that same little girl. And in the last moments of her life, she gives Casteris something she didn't even know she needed for her entire life: the caring embrace that melted the ice wall of indifference Casteris had towards life. And because of it, she breaks, and in this fleeting moment, she felt like a person for the first time in her life. So she found herself unable to let go and simply cries in the dying arms of the one person who truly understood her pain. The one person who told her that her hands weren't cold at all. They were always warm, just like any other person. And this touched Casteris to such an extent that she decided to wrap the woman's grave in her cloak, hoping that she can, in the slightest of ways, continue the one warm embrace she ever felt. And this is where the Easter egg happens, because this is where so many people got lost. But those of you who watch my videos, you probably already know what this is and put together the pieces. I've seen so many comments of people asking, why does this deer just show up and just lock in out of nowhere? And I'm gonna tell you. But first, let's go to the trailer, because we've got to address this first in order for everything to make sense. And listen closely.
Embrace new life. I will bring rest to death.
Do you get it now? No? Okay. I made a video explaining how similar Casteris is to Seela from Honkai Impact 3rd. You know, the giant scythe girl with the butterfly aesthetic and the white dress who just happens to have another side of herself that she has to get to know? Yes, there are too many similarities for this to be a coincidence, and that's not all. Because this girl, Seela, became a demigod or Herrscher of death. But not exactly death, but of rebirth, because the power was changed. It was supposed to be death, but ended up being rebirth. And it was my prediction that this was going to be the case with Casteris. And her saying things like, embrace new life, and I will bring rest to death, aligns perfectly with everything I've predicted so far. And this deer is the whipped cream cherry on top of the sundae on a summer's day. Because you know who else has a deer? The only other character to have anything to do with this animal is none other than the Herrscher of rebirth form of Seela. That is her summon. This Easter egg quite literally stared us in the face, and so many people missed it. And now you know. And on top of this, the sun rises, shining a new dawn, a new day, rebirth. The Paean of Era Nova, the song of victory for the new life giver's era. Finality, new beginning. It is all coming together, and Casteris is a huge step forward. I am so hyped for this story. Everyone is flipping out about fake sky, and I'm over here fixating on the ending, or should I say, new beginning. Because this is Casteris's past and future explained. I think the entire Casteris story will be a huge turning point in this game. You guys just wait. I know the My Day story was good, but I'm getting some different vibes from this one. There is still so much left to unpack, and I haven't even touched on Anaxa, because this guy didn't just figure out that the sky was fake. He might have also figured out that the world resets, which makes Emphorius way too much like Genshin, because apparently Teyvat kinda also does this world reset after 500 years, and that also works with my Emphorius doesn't exist theory. Just saying. Anyway, I think we just found the real Seela XP, which means that the Belobog Seela is Veliona, which makes sense personality-wise, I guess. I feel like Anaxa, I've discovered the truth of this world. But what do you guys think? Be sure to let me know, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace, y'all.